Thank you, brother. Thank you. I appreciate it. All right, I got a standing ovation. I didn't even do anything yet. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I mean, thank you so much for the kind words. I really appreciate it. This may sound crazy, but it's not easy to stand there and have somebody say such nice things about you. So I really do appreciate it. It's very, very humbling. I actually almost started to cry, especially when you called me Larry by accident. All right. So at the end of the day, we're here to have fun and dinner, right? I'm not here to teach you guys how to redo your menus or anything like that. So while we're doing this too, maybe in the back you're going to have to really yell. But while we're doing this, if anybody has any questions or anything they want to add or a story they want to tell or anything like that, please feel free, all right? This is not church, and I'm not a priest, okay? I do want to start and talk a little bit about the dish that I just did, the chili lobster. It was hard to talk to people because we had the fire and the band was right behind me. By the way, a round of applause for the lobsters that were behind me, those ice sculptures. I woke up very early this morning just to make them, so. But that dish, I wanted to do that in particular for you guys, for the hors d'oeuvres, and people kept coming up like, what is it? You know, why are you cooking it in the shell? You know, what's the name of this dish? And the name of the dish is called chili lobster. I don't know if anybody's ever been to Singapore. Yes, a couple? No? All right. Well, in Singapore, their national dish is called chili crab. And the first time I ever went to Singapore, I was like 23 years old. I was supposed to be going with my then boss at the time, Laurent Torrendell, from BLT, if anybody knows Laurent Torrendell. And the last minute, he canceled. And he's like, but you're still going to go, and I want you to bring David. So there I am, 24 years old. I get to go with one of my best buddies on an all-expenses-paid trip to Singapore, stay at the Four Seasons, and basically just kind of lie a little bit to my chef and tell him that everything's okay and he doesn't need to be here. But they take us to this restaurant, and they have this chili crab, and it's basically this giant plate about yay big, and it's got like 5 or 6 giant mud crabs that they cut in half. And we're sitting at this round table, and there's no silverware, so they're like, you just dig in. So we're ripping the crab apart, and there's stuff everywhere. And then I look down and I notice they don't even give you napkins. So I'm like, all right. And I see 2 bowls next to me that have flowers in them and water. So I stick my hands in the water. And I didn't even notice the people standing in the shadows, but there were people in the shadows behind me that then came up from behind and then dried my hands off as I was standing there. And you got to remember, I'm a broke 23-year-old, more or less, line cook at the time. And I'm like, holy shit, this is amazing. And then I messed with them a little bit. I just kept sticking my hands in the water and coming. I was really moved by this whole experience. And I kind of just kept a mental note. If I ever have my own restaurant, again, this was a long time ago. This is way before my first restaurant. I said to myself, if I'm going to try to recreate this. So that was kind of where chili lobster came from. And, as, I know there's a lot of chefs out there. Sometimes, I've made thousands of dishes in my life, but every once in a while, one sticks that everybody just gravitates to. Food writers like to write about blah, 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 and chili lobster kind of became that with this dish. So I know that the questions were why you leave it in the shell. The reason we leave it in the shell like that is if you were to throw lobster meat in the pan without the protective shell like that, it shrinks, right? You've all seen what happens when you saute lobster, right? It kind of curls up and you lose a little bit. So just a little tip, when you're doing the lobster like that, just cut it through the shell. It has like the natural segments, and it helps cook it that way. So did you guys like the chili lobster? Yeah. Yep.
And we're going to sit down. Yep, so actually what we're going to do, I'm glad you guys are going to like the... Oh, by the way, my name is Eamon. I'm the corporate chef for Maine's. How was everybody tonight? I've already had the pleasure of working with Chef Mark, and like me, once you get me going, you cannot stop me. Okay? So we're actually going to wind up serving a couple of these dishes first, and then as we're moving through the program, we're actually going to bring Mark back up here, and then we're going to continue to enjoy everything else. So at this point, we're going to have the servers. I'm going to bring you down.
Cool.
You're going to meet all the cool people I'm sitting with, and then we're going to come back. So until then, everybody, I hope you really enjoy your meal. Mark, once again, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Absolutely.
Bon appetit.
Enjoy, guys.
I just want you to know that the piece of meat that you had is actually the eye of the rib. So it's literally the rib eye that we took out of all those poor prime ribs. But we got you the best part, the pastrami spice, and everything else that you had on that dish. Absolutely wonderful. We're going to have the sets on Fresh Ideas at Maine's. So when you go onto the website afterwards, you're going to be able to get a lot of the cues from a lot of the food that you had a chance to enjoy tonight. But without further ado, I would like to reintroduce Chef Mark Forgione. Please.
All right. Everybody's having fun? Everybody drinking enough? Not yet? Well, we're in a casino, right? So, all right. So, I'm going to demonstrate the dishes that you guys just got to eat, which I also got to eat myself, which I didn't know I was going to do that until they told me to get off the stage and come down and eat the food. So it was actually a really strange, full circle moment that I had in my life. So somebody came over to me while we're eating, and they were like, I really enjoyed the asparagus dish. What was the idea behind it? And I was probably, I don't know, 7 years old, 8 years old, maybe. And it was the first time I ever wore a tuxedo. I had an electric blue tie. And my father was doing one of the courses at a dinner at the Greenbrier in Virginia. And he served that exact dish. And I didn't even realize it until I was sitting there. But that was the moment in my life, and again, I must have been 7 or 8 years old, where I had no idea that was my dad's dish either. And I was eating dinner by myself because my dad was in the kitchen at a big table just like these. And I tugged on the guy sitting next to me, and I was like, wow. And he was like, what do you mean, wow? I was like, I didn't know food could make you feel like that. And it was the first food memory I ever had in my life. So I'm going to teach you guys how to make this dish. And this, every once in a while, I'll take a dish from my dad's repertoire, and I'll just kind of leave it alone. So we're going to do the Morel mushroom sauce, all right? And it's an old school, untouched, classic dish from, I want to say 1985, give or take, all right? And I think you guys can probably agree, eating that today, it could be on a menu of a dish that was created, now. Sauté pins. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is take, we've got the shallots, we've got the tomato concasse. And by the way, while we're doing this, I have microphones kind of walking through the dining room. So feel free at any point to ask some questions. Gotcha. So I was just being told, there's a bunch of chefs out there, right? How many people out there actually go out and forage their own stuff? Show of hands. Good amount of people, right? So right now is the time to go get Morel mushrooms. Is there oil on the tray? Or just regular oil? You know what? I'll just use butter. So right now you have Morel mushrooms everywhere, and to me, I hate saying something is my favorite or this, that, the other thing, but I do put Morels way up there in the category of this is when you know it's spring. weird, no? I'm hearing voices back here, and I don't know what it is. I think somebody put something in the wine.
We're taking questions. Anybody want to ask Mark a question? This is pretty easy.
All right. So I actually just got introduced to a brand new mushroom this year. Has anybody ever heard of a snowbank mushroom? No, right? It's looks almost exactly like a short, fat morel. Tastes similar, not as good, but I guarantee you by next year, more and more people are going to start to use them. All right, so we're going to get the pan hot. When it comes to morels, they can be dirty, obviously. So you want to cut them. Some people say don't ever wash mushrooms. It's not true. And I've worked with many, many other people that would say the same thing that I just said.
No problem. Chef.
Yes, sir.
The wine is starting to take an effect. I have a question.
Let's do it.
Come on, I'm going to stand up.
All right. So I was thinking, how do you cure the egg yolk?
How do we cure the egg yolk? So a couple people at the table actually asked me about that too. So I don't know if you guys noticed there was almost, it looked like cheese was kind of grated on top of the dish. So you basically, I don't know if we have the stuff to show that here. So, is this the camera? So this is a cured egg yolk.
Behold.
So essentially, you take the egg yolks, you separate the egg yolks, you take a little salt, sugar, whatever spices you want to put in, it's completely up to you. You then lay the salt and sugar mixture out in a pan. You take the eggshell, make a little divot, pour the egg yolk right into that divot, and then cover it with more sugar, salt mixture, and you let it sit in the fridge for, could be a day, could be 2 days, could be 3 days. You just keep checking it, and you kind of dig it out, you know, kind of like finding buried treasure. Sometimes it'll be a little wet at that point, and there's two things you can do. You can either put it in the dehydrator for an hour, because everybody has a dehydrator at home, right? And if you don't have the dehydrator, you just turn your oven on, and then, I know this sounds weird, turn it off, leave the door open a little bit, and then just leave them in there and let like the residual heat kind of do its thing. All right, so this is a very cool, old school technique. Morel mushrooms, now you've got them nice and sauteed. The next thing I like to add is shallots. And if you don't have shallots, I mean, right now you have some beautiful spring onions. I tell people all the time when I'm doing a demo on food that I cook, unless you work at my restaurant, I am not going to come into your kitchen and yell at you because you changed the recipe. Unless you ask me to. All right, so now we've got shallots. The shallots reduce a little bit. They get nice and translucent. This is tomato concasse. And this is actually one of the first things that I learned to make when I was working at an American Place.
Chef, I got another question out here in the field.
Shoot.
Chef, in your video, we heard you say the balance between artistry and business. What do you do in your restaurants to keep those checks and balances so one doesn't take over the other?
I have people tell me to chill out with the artistry. No, honestly, like the broad stroke answer to that question, sorry, I'm just going to add a little booze now. At this point, you can add sherry, white wine, tequila. I mean, it's up to you. Here, I'm going to add a little vermouth. The answer to that question is you really need to have balance with the people that you have around you. You know, if you only hire artists, it's not going to work. If you only hire business people, it's not going to work. So you need to kind of find that happy medium of people that understand the whole thing. Heavy cream, man. All right, once you get a reduction here, and this is kind of an important part. If you don't let this reduce down to, in French they call it sec, in English we call it dry, you're not going to cook off the alcohol and it's not going to taste right. So then here, if you guys can see that, we'll then add a little bit of the cream. And then similar to what I just said now you want to just let this cook down. So the other part of this dish and again, going back to, you can kind of interpret this how you want and put your own spin on it. You can use white asparagus, purple asparagus. The original dish that I actually tried at the Greenbrier was with these tiny little baby white asparagus that almost looked like matchsticks, which you don't really see around too often these days. So we've got a little bit of toast, a little bit of asparagus, like so. Now that we've got the cream reduced down to where it needs to be, and this is kind of what I like about old school cooking, is like you're not afraid to use cream and butter and all those kind of things. And there's bread in there, so it's not gluten-free either. Not that there's anything wrong with that, I'm just saying. Sometimes it's okay to indulge, right? Okay, we taste. And then at this point, I don't know if you guys can see this. I don't know where the cameras are, but. So you really want to get this down and reduce so it's almost like a chutney, like a sauce consistency. So right on top of the asparagus. Cream, mushrooms, and all. All right, and again, depending on where you are, you find your favorite cheese. I was trying to kind of keep in play with my old man. He loved the Crowley cheese from Vermont, if anybody's ever heard of it. I saw today walking around the show, there was some Smithfield ham, right? So we got some Smithfield ham. Yeah, we got a Smithfield in the house? All right. So now we're just making a sandwich, essentially. A little bit of ham, a little bit of cheese. So imagine that there's an oven here. He said use the torch, but I don't want to blowtorch it. I feel like that's very Morimoto of me, so I don't want to. He's not here, right? No? And this, you know, it's kind of a sauce that's, at least I don't see too often. I don't know if it's still around up here, but you don't see beurre blanc done too often in New York City these days. A round of applause for beurre blanc. I like that. So beurre blanc, I think everybody's kind of got their own ways or maybe little tricks, or, you know, a traditional beurre blanc is your shallots, your vinegar, the white wine, black pepper, tarragon. You reduce everything, and then you painstakingly whisk in butter. It's okay. Like I said, I'm not going to come jumping out of the closet and yell at you if you put a little heavy cream in before you whisk in the butter, all right? Just don't tell Michelle Gerard I said that, all right? And then you just take the the beurre blanc here, right over the top. And like I said, sometimes it's fun to eat like it's 1986, you know? But then, just because I'm the rebellious teenager still at heart, I take a cured egg yolk and grate it all over it. Right, I can almost hear my dad saying right now, like, why the fuck you putting egg yolks on my thing? All right, there you go. And if there's any kids out there, I didn't mean to curse, I'm sorry.
Chef, we have another question out here. Father, would you like to ask Chef a question?
Yeah. Chef, right here.
Gotcha.
I know working with morels can be challenging versus dry or fresh. How would you prepare those morels for this dish, whether they were dried or fresh? What are the different techniques that you would do to prepare those to consume?
Well, anytime you have to, I'm going to use that word. Anytime you have to use dried, you need to rehydrate them, obviously. But my simple recommendation to that is if you can't get the fresh morels, maybe substitute it with a fresh mushroom that you can get your hands on. And then maybe add just a little bit of the dried morels as opposed to doing the whole dish with the dried morels, because I think dried mushrooms have a much stronger end to them, you know what I mean? So just a little dab will do you when it comes to the dried mushrooms. All right, so now we're gonna do the dish that you guys all tasted in the back, the story that I said about the thing, all right, the chili lobster. Has anybody been to the restaurant, by the way? Anybody? A few? All right, well, there's a bus picking everybody up tomorrow morning. It's something we're going to have to remedy, all right? Lobster. Gotcha. All right, so first thing you want to do is make the sauce. And this is one of those sauces where once you get everything pre-done, it's a breeze to do. Soy and lime, right? All right, so now we'll go to the lobster. All right, so if you just kind of zoom in on this, right? So we'll get the whole lobsters in, right? When we order our lobsters, we get them whole and alive. So the first thing we do to be nice is we stab them in the head. It's kind of just, we feel bad ripping them in half, so we stab them in the head first. I know it sounds stupid, but it's just something that I do for them. And then at that point, once you take the head off, you want to separate the shells and clean out the gills. And the reason you do that is because the gills in a lobster, and if you don't know what the gills are, the feathers, you'll see them. I mean, they're sticking up the sides like this of the head once you rip the top off, all right? You just scrape those off, and then you make stock with the head, and that's what's in here now. All right, so this is kind of one of those, don't waste anything on the thing. At the end of the day, the lobster is going to cost $14, $15 a portion, so you got to figure out how to use everything without charging $60 per person for the lobster, right? And then the next thing we do, and I'll show you guys real quick, if you can come over here. So the lobster has segments in it. You guys see that? Yeah? Yep. So this isn't like you don't need this to do it. Okay? I keep thinking about Morimoto. Is he here? Like, I feel like something's going on. All right, so you don't need a giant knife to do it. You literally just need to find, you see that? All right, you just need to find the sweet spot. All right, I'm hardly even applying pressure. It's literally just finding the right place to go. Last one. All right, so then you get left with this. All right? And again, sometimes I see people do this, or I'll come in and it'll be a new cook, and he's got this knife out, and he's, you don't need to do it. All right, I just showed you how to do it with that. All right. So we've got the stock going here now, and this, people don't believe it when I tell them. I mean, at the restaurant, we make our own, but you do not need to make your own. The dish started originally with sriracha. We made all these different versions of the sauces in the original version, and finally one day, one of the cooks was like, you know, what if we just try sriracha? And we tried sriracha, and we said, you know what? It's okay. We're going to use sriracha. And there's absolutely, I tell people all the time, nothing wrong with using condiments when you're getting into your food. And sometimes when I get into this quote-unquote argument with chefs, I ask them very simply, have you ever used Tabasco? And almost every chef in here, I think, will agree that you've used Tabasco sauce, right? So what's the difference of using sriracha? Right. You know what I mean? You have a napkin? So don't feel bad about using sriracha. If you want to make your own, you can. Sriracha is actually really easy to make. Like I said, we just started making it. You basically just let the chilies ferment for about a month, and then you puree them with sugar, salt, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Chef, we got another question down here in the audience.
Shoot.
Congratulations on your great performance on Iron Chef. And
Thank you.
Talking about Iron
Which is airing today on Food Network, by the way.
Yes. You did an episode where your sous chef was your dad.
No. I was his sous chef.
Ah.
Trust me.
But anyway, what was that experience like with your dad in that type of competition? It had to be pretty special.
It was extremely special, and I'll actually be the first one to be very honest with you. I was a little nervous. I was a little nervous about my dad getting on the TV because, believe it or not, it's the first time you get out there. It's a little nerve-wracking. I mean, you got 7 of this guy. I mean, they're running around all over. There's wires everywhere, and there's Alton Brown chasing you around. You're going against the big chef. And it's Kitchen Stadium. So I don't know about you guys, but I grew up watching Iron Chef. So like when you get there, it's like a kid playing baseball, like stepping out onto Yankee Stadium, onto Yankee Field. It was pretty wild. But so I was a little, and I don't know if I ever told him this. So this stays here, okay? I was a little nervous for my dad, so I was like, without trying to insult him, I was trying to coach him and like, don't worry, I'll do 2 dishes, you only have to do 1, like, you know what I mean? Like I was really just trying to make sure that he did all right. And then, the competition starts, and, I'm very higher energy when those battles go on, so I'm running around doing my normal thing, like hopping over stuff, and my dad's just literally wiping stuff down, telling me to relax. I come over and his station looked like it was, the battle just started. And, my station is like, I got pasta hanging off the ceiling and, all this stuff. And then when it got to do the tasting, the judges don't really know who makes what, They know that it's our dish, but they don't know. And, his dishes were probably the best received of the whole thing. And like that part I wasn't surprised about. It was more I wasn't sure if he was going to be able to handle the lights and the camera, and he absolutely, like I said, he ended up making me look stupid as per usual in my life. So, all right, so while we were talking, I added lime juice and low sodium soy sauce. I don't know when or why I started with the low sodium soy sauce, but for you guys at your restaurants, give it a try. I don't know why. I don't use soy sauce anymore. I only use the low sodium stuff. And it takes a little bit of the edge off when you're making recipes. It makes them a little lighter. So if you want to give it a whirl, give it a whirl. So we're going to add the butter. I mean, I didn't really think about this, but I guess at the end of the day, this is kind of like a old school sriracha butter sauce. And you don't have to be that careful with this. Like essentially, once it starts to emulsify, you know, in 1986, Jesus, they didn't have this. We do. All right, peaches. So once you get the butter started, you can essentially just finish it with this. All right, so while I was doing that, I got the pan hot over here. Ah, shit, we need the oil again. There's no oil over it? You know what? Don't worry about it. We're going to improvise. All right, so we take our lobsters. A little bit of salt. And you don't want to go too crazy with the salt because remember there's soy sauce in here, right? On that note, you want to make sure you taste this for salt. And it doesn't need salt. And something that's really cool about this dish too, if you try it at home, the recipe is in the book and online, you can find it. When you taste the sauce by itself, it's really spicy. And you're like, there's no way this is going to work. This is going to kill it. But there's something, a reaction that happens with shellfish and spice. It's like sugar and spice. They just really go together well. And the sweetness from the lobster really counterbalances with the hot of the chilies. Onions, ginger. All right, this is very simple. Just a little bit of onion. A little bit of minced ginger. Again, normally there'd be oil in the pan, so I'm just going to add a little bit of butter. And who knows, watch, I'm going to end up liking it better and call my chef tonight, tell him we're doing it with butter from now on. And this is something that I do want to show you, actually. So when I first put the lobsters in, I didn't touch them, and I'd let them get the sear. Right, when we're making stock or bones, right, what's the most important part when you're doing like a sauce? Is you want to get that the fond on the pan when you're making a dark chicken stock, for example, right? So what we did is we made a fond with the lobster. So every single time this dish gets made, if you order chili lobster at the restaurant, every single one gets that. And I think that is one of the secrets of why people like this dish so much. Well, it's too late now. I mean, what am I supposed to do then? I'm joking. I'm not joking. Do we have a ladle or no? All right, and then very simple, right in that pan. So you're essentially, and this is what I was saying before, you're now deglazing all the lobster flavor with the lobster sauce. All right, and you essentially want to let it finish cooking. I'm going to turn the heat down here. All right, and then the last part to this dish, I know it might sound a little strange, but I use mint a lot in my savory dishes, not just in pastry. I think it adds like a nice freshness to it. I think especially with this dish too, you know, a lot of Thai cooking or Laotian cooking, they'll use rau rum, which is basically a Vietnamese mint. I think that's kind of where the idea came from originally. So I'm going to finish it with a little bit of fresh mint. And then again, if we had a broiler, we would have the Texas toast grilled or broiled. And to me, I don't know if you guys tasted it when you guys were out there, I think the best part is almost dipping the bread into the sauce, right? All right, and the cool part, and I'm going to actually show you guys this part too. So I try to tell people, you know, in the beginning, my manager, who's still my manager to this day, he was like, "Chef, it's going to be too hard for people to eat. Like, how are they going to get the... Do we have a fork or no? Who's got a fork? Yeah, give me a fork. Perfect. So the method to this kind of goes back to those days of when I was talking about right, I was ripping apart the crab, right? It's kind of part of the reason why I wanted to leave it in the shell. But, you know, essentially, you just push the meat through. See that? And then the shell takes the meat back off, and it goes back into the sauce. Then you get left with the shell goes on the side. And then you drip the lobster back in the sauce, and it goes into your mouth. So that's what happens in the bowl. All right? And there's times to be fancy, and there's times to be fast, and that was a time to be fast. All right, a little bit of scallion here. All right, and that's the chili lobster.
Chef, we got a couple more questions out here in the audience.
How's it going? You had mentioned earlier that your steakhouse, you had, you know, if you took cream spinach off the menu, people would freak out, and you have your signature dishes that involve ingredients that you need all year long. And I guess my question is, throughout the year, certain times lobster is $6 a pound, certain times lobster is $13 a pound. How do you remedy having things that people count on you for every day of the week and then not knowing how to control your costs on those things?
Well, lobster in particular is one of those dishes that goes up and down cost-wise. So we put market price on the menu for lobster. But that's easy to do that with lobster. You know, with other things, I mean, it's really tough. It kind of goes back to what I just said before about trying to figure out how to use the whole entire thing, you know what I mean? Like at the steakhouse in particular, right? We get charged, we do get charged for, if we order a 109, right, that we have them cut for us. The 109 is a rib steak. So we have our butcher in New York, we don't have a bandsaw, right? So they have to cut the ribeyes for us. So we order the 109, but cut to 2-inch, you know, our spec, right? We have to still pay for all the trim and the dry aged stuff that they take off of that. So we were finishing all the steaks in the beginning, or before we opened, we were like, oh, we'll finish all the steaks with maitre d' butter. As we saw all this trim, we decided to make something that we now call the mop, which is instead of finishing the steaks with butter, we finish the steaks with the rendered fat from the dry aged thing. So we don't buy butter. And the reason I'm bringing up that case in particular is because, for example, I can't put market price for all my steaks, but beef price goes like this too. You know what I mean? So you really just need to try to find that balance of, you know, what are other people in your market charging for a ribeye? You know what I mean? What can I charge? Okay, well now I got to figure out if I got to charge whatever it is, $50 for the ribeye, how can I make money from the other stuff? It's not easy, you know?
Thanks, Chef. Got another question out here in the field.
Good evening, Chef. Thank you for being here. Do you have a preferred set of cookware that you like to use in terms of material? Aluminum, steel, ceramic, copper, Teflon? And also, do you get your superpowers from your mohawk?
About time we had that question.
Well, I guess I'll start with the mohawk. So I just got married in November, by the way.
Hey, all right.
And the reason I'm bringing that up is because I've had this mohawk for, I don't even know, well, a long time. Since I met my wife, and I met my wife 10 years ago, so I've had the mohawk for probably 12 or 13 years. And probably about 4 years ago, I was like, I think I'm done with it. And I went to go shave it off, and she was my fiance or girlfriend at the time, and she just very calmly grabbed me by the wrist and said, if you cut that off, I'm out of here. So that's why I have the mohawk to this day. It also makes my nose look smaller. What was the other part of the question? Oh, the ceramics and stuff. At home, I know it sounds kind of crazy for a professional chef, but at home I actually like to use Kyocera ceramic knives. I think that, as long as you're not doing any heavy lifting, and at home, usually, you might be chopping an onion, and for vegetables, they're great. They stay sharp. I buy one like every 2 or 3 years. And you can actually send them back and they'll sharpen them for you. At the restaurant, my restaurant happens to be 2 blocks from a really, really great knife store called Culinary. And they specialize in Japanese blades, and they do an amazing job. So a lot of my knife bag is full of knives from Culinary, all different knife makers.
Chef, I have a question for you. Commonly we hear in the field challenges. It's not like the old days when people like yourself, you're young, you have good inspiration, you're ready to go into a kitchen, you're ready to work your butt off because that's what it takes to get up in the industry. Today, what we find in the field, we hear from a lot of customers in the field, is you get a lot of young people come in, cell phone in hand, and an attitude like they just got out of culinary school, now that they're newly $75,000 in debt, that they are ready to run the show. Do you run into that in your establishments? And what do you do to counteract some of I'm not saying it's all of them, but the kids aren't the same as they used to be when we were kids. And so what are your remedies? What do you do? How do you try to overcome those challenges in your restaurants?
It is tough. I mean, at the end of the day, look, the world's it's not going to change, right? Cell phones aren't going to go away. I mean, it's not just the cell phones. I think when I was 18 years old, for example, right? Or maybe when I was 20, when I really decided I'm going to be a chef, my goal was to have my own restaurant. That was it. It was not to be on TV, to be an Iron Chef, to own multiple restaurants, to be up in front of 600 people doing a demonstration. It was to own my own restaurant. And I think, you could probably agree with me. I mean, that was the goal of kids 20 years ago, right? It was to own your own restaurant. Like, that was it. Or be a chef. Didn't even have to own it. I want to be a chef of a restaurant. Now, you ask a kid that comes out of school, what do you want to do? Well, I want to be on TV. I want to write a cookbook. I want to do, it's like, well, no offense, but why don't you learn how to cook a piece of fish before you, before you figure out that you want to write your own cookbook? So I think the answer to that question is, what do you do? I think it's up to us to try to teach, that it's not a sprint. I mean, some people, for whatever reason, think I'm younger than I am. Maybe it's because I'm my dad's son. I don't know what it is, but I'm just about 40 years old. You know what I mean? It wasn't like a snap. You know what I mean? I've been working in the kitchen since I was 17, give or take, full-time since I was 20. So do the math. That's 20 years. You know what I mean? It's not like that. And I think that it's up to us to teach kids. It's not like that. Like, you know, I have kids that come out of school and they work in the kitchen and, you know, they work the garde manger station for 3 months and they ask if they can move. You know, I'm ready to go on the hotline. Like, kid, why don't you make the mayonnaise without breaking it, you know? Then maybe we'll figure out if you can cook an egg, you know what I mean? So I would just, my advice to kids, and if you guys can give this advice to kids, is patience. You know, chill out, like relax, like learn something. Like it's a craft. And it's not their fault. It's not their fault. It's everything in life today is, you know, it's just the way it is, you know? So I would just, my advice when you're trying to teach these kids is just patience.
Excellent.
Where do you see yourself in 10 years? What do you see yourself doing in 10 years from now?
Probably working the pass at my restaurant.
Nothing else? Nothing forward? Kids?
I mean, I'd love to have some children, yeah. I mean, you know, like
More
I said, I just got
restaurants?
married. I don't know, you know. I really don't know. When people, I know it's such a tongue-in-cheek answer, but when people ask me what's next, I usually answer with tomorrow.
That's good.
John, you haven't fielded one question tonight. What's going on
He's
over
getting
here?
lazy. He's getting lazy.
It's that beef is going to his head. Oh, here we go. Ready for this?
Here you go, Chef.
Chef, thank you. It's beautiful dinner, beautiful dissertation, et cetera, et cetera. When I started in this business, there was no such thing as food culture in New York. I'm from New York. I live in Brooklyn. I run a catering company for many years. And there was a time where I slept on my mother's couch for a lot of years being a chef because I couldn't make enough money to live elsewhere. Now there is this culture of being on television and writing cookbooks at the drop of a hat. Everybody's famous. What's the next stage for our industry? Where do we go from here? Now that everyone is super famous, you have Fabio's here, you have Mark Forgione's there, et cetera, all these brilliant people who do what they do. What's next for us after television?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. They're probably going to invent, I don't know, a pill that gives you a 7-course tasting menu. And then we've got to put lab coats on. I mean, I don't it's tough. Honestly, I can't speak for everybody on that. You know, but I was talking to some people at my table that I was eating with, you know, and their question to me, and I can't speak about, you know, Fabio or Morimoto or other people whose names you might not know. I just know that for me, you know, no matter how big or quote-unquote famous or all that kind of stuff, I like spending my nights in my restaurant strictly because I like it. You know what I mean? So I think, and again, I can't talk about other people because I'm not them, but when you see a guy that quote-unquote makes it and then all of a sudden they disappear from the restaurant, you know, maybe that's because they don't really like it. You know? But for me, I consider myself the luckiest person in the world. You know, I opened in 2008, and then we had a little bit of a financial crisis in 2009. I don't know if you guys remember that. I sure do. And you know, you know, I was a night away from closing. You know, literally a night away from closing. You know, then we got a Michelin star, and so everything started to kind of fall into place. So, like, I know about that humility and that hard work and that hanging on for dear life to everything that it took to get that restaurant where it is. So for me, I don't know, maybe I'm a little different. Like, there wasn't like just some like, you know, poof, I won a competition and I was on TV and blah, 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 blah. Like, I had already worked my ass off when I got on the show. So I know what it's like. So I think, you know what should be next? Everybody should taste a little humility before they get to be famous. That should be next.
Okay, Chef, we have another question over here.
Yeah, I just had a question right here. I wanted to know your view about the type of style of cooking, farm to table versus large manufacturing companies that produce food that, in my opinion, I've been cooking for 30 years. I'm about 6, 7 years older than yourself. And I've just been finding so much food that is non-beneficial to us as a human species, and finding out that there's farms that are been taken over by certain corporations, and the mom and pop farms are becoming extinct. I wanted to know what your view is of organic farming and farm to table. It's something that I truly believe in, and I think we need to go back into that whole type of industry to put on our tables every night.
Yeah, well, I mean, honestly, not to simplify the answer, but it's very simple. You know, there's only one way to support small farmers and people, small fishermen and small butchers, and that's support them by buying their product, you know, and telling people about these people that you use. You know, it's the only way. Like, you know, everybody's got to support these people. And, you know, you also have to be realistic, too. You know, it's actually a double-edged sword, because right now we live in a day where it's very easy to get information out there, you know? So, you know, if the small farmer is getting pushed out by somebody, like, it's very easy now to take a picture and send it online and get it in front of everybody and show the people, you know what I mean? But as far as in your local community, you know, the bigger picture, I don't think we have enough time to talk about that, but in your local community, you know, if they want to set up a farmer's market, the only way to keep that farmer's market going is for you and all your friends and family to go there and support that farmer's market when they show up. Because I've seen farmer's markets try to open in certain towns, and it doesn't work because people don't go.
Perfect.
So you got to support them.
Another question over here, Chef.
Hi, Chef. Quick question. I just, in your video there, you said you like, for inspiration, sometimes you just like to be alone and think, but I'm just wondering, where do you pull the inspiration from for your menus, your ideas, your recipes, or what makes you, inspire you to keep creating these new wonderful dishes?
Well, I did a lot of drugs in high school. I don't know. I hate to like. The truth is, I've been very blessed my whole life. I've been having ideas for dishes since I started cooking. I have books. I mean, books and books and books. It's stuff that's always come to me. And I was joking before. I was in the green room and there was pictures of musicians all over the walls. I wish I could, and I play the guitar for fun, and I wish that ideas for songs came to me the way ideas for dishes come. It's just, that's what I was meant to do, you know, and I get inspired by anything, everything and anything. I told a story at my table again tonight when we were coming off the thruway today. You know, the dandelion flowers turn into those poofy things, you know? When you're a kid, you pick them up and all the things flow off, you know what I'm talking about? Right? So as soon as I went through the throughway, I picked up my phone and texted my chef, like, let's do a dandelion salad, but we got to find dandelion flowers, like still gold, and we'll dehydrate them, and we'll serve the dehydrated dandelion flowers on a card that they can blow onto their dish. And that just happened because I saw the thing and it reminded me of being a kid. Like, again, I did a lot of drugs in high school.
Chef, we have another question back here.
What was the first dish that you ever cooked for your wife, and what's your favorite dish to cook for yourself?
It's actually a very funny story. So, at the time, I was the chef de cuisine of BLT Prime on 22nd Street and Park Avenue. And there was an open kitchen. And at the time, I was a very, very single bachelor, enjoying my youth. And it was kind of I don't want to say easy, but it was set up for success with the open kitchen, and if there was a good-looking woman, I would just kind of send them something and tell the waiter to point at me, and I'd kind of just... So it was kind of like my move. So I saw her, and I was like, all right, she looks like she's Italian, she's beautiful. I'll do I remember specifically, it was a black pepper pappardelle with duck confit and a dried apricot chutney with fresh mint, actually. And it was truffle season, so I sliced the truffle, and I rolled the pappardelle up on a fork and did the whole thing, and then put a wine cork under it so that all she had to do, and a nice slice of truffle, so all she had to do was pick it up and have the perfect one bite, right? So I watched the dish go out, and I'm getting ready to do my pose. And it's fun. I'm laughing now because I know her so well now, but she picked up the dish, and she smelled it. She took off the truffle, and she gave the truffle to the person sitting next to her, smelled it again, and I was like, who would? I was like, what the? And the reason I can laugh about it now is because she, to this day, she's one of the, she pushes me to be, better in everything, not just in cooking. So it was just funny that me and my cocky young self, and she basically just smacked me around. It was and then what was the second part of the question? My favorite dish to cook myself. I don't know if I have a favorite dish to cook myself. That's a tough question. I think I always tell people if I'm having a stressful day and I actually have some time, I don't really have that much time anymore, but when I used to be stressed out and I was having I had some time, I would just make fresh pasta. It would soothe me. Didn't matter what, fresh pasta. Just a dough, I don't know, and then I'd turn it into whatever shape I felt like turning it into.
Chef, thank you very much. Thank you very much. There's a round of applause, please, for Mark Forgione, ladies and gentlemen.
Gonna bring the guys out. Oh, they're going? Absolutely. So while you guys are standing up, please stay up, stay up, stay up, stay up. I just want to really give a round of applause to the kitchen guys tonight. Yeah, if you don't know how hard it is to cook for 600 people, when it's not your recipes and a chef with a mohawk just gives you a bunch of pages and you got to make it happen. I mean, Chef, thank you to you and your staff, and you guys killed it.
At this point, I'd also like to note, a lot of folks don't know how long it takes to put together an event like this. We started this back last year. Chef Mike Zmigrodzki has been quietly working behind the scenes for the last 3 years to put on these events. This guy does not get enough credit. So I would like to single you out, Chef, and to offer my thank you. And it's an honor to work with you. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I give to you Mr. Chris Mellon.
Mark, very well done.
Thank you.
We have a surprise for Mark since he picked on Chef Morimoto. We're going to be
Oh,
bringing
shit,
him
I
up
knew
on
it.
screen to address the charges that Mark's brought against him with the way he prepares his food. And on this screen, his wife's going to come up and see if that story's true about how he met her and what he prepared. No, I want to thank you because this is the culmination of several days for us. And we start Monday night with a journey with a lot of folks trying to explain to them about what they're going to experience. And we bring up professionals to try and make their restaurants better, talk a lot about prime costs, what they can do, how they can execute better, what has to happen, what trends are. And we try and leave a message. And the one challenge we gave everybody Monday night was, based on what you're going to learn here at our show, just take 3 things, 3, back and execute them for real. Don't get overwhelmed by all the things that we throw at you. Don't get overwhelmed by the vendors and what they're bringing to you. Don't get overwhelmed that no one can come close to doing what you do here. Just pick 3 things. And so we're actually going to send some of our marketing people, Robbie and Alicia are going to go out at some point, and they're going to meet with some of the customers to talk that we're here to see what of the 3 things that they've done.
Great idea.
And to bring it back next year with testimonials about what they did and what they learned so that it starts to feed on itself. So that's Monday night. Then you go into Tuesday and you go to the show. You walk the floor, you meet everyone. I hope everybody experienced a change in the show where we set up a more relaxed environment, where it wasn't about buying product, it was about interacting with the vendors and finding creative ideas as a source. Because one of the things, and I loved what Mark said tonight about the kind of the school of hard knocks, you know what I mean, and humility. You know, one of the things about most people here are you don't have an R&D department. You don't have a marketing department. You know, you really have an experience that you want to create at your restaurant that by word of mouth, most cases, right, is going to spread and bring people in more and more and more and more. And I think one of the key things Mark said is that a lot of times that goes to people's heads. They get into the TV programs, they start stepping out of their restaurants. And some of the things we talked about is how does the restaurant execute when Mark's not in his restaurant? So he's here tonight, and I'm hopefully feeling comfortable being here tonight because he's put the systems in place to be able to execute well. But you can be damn sure that tomorrow Mark's going to be down there finding out exactly how it went. Did they deliver upon what his guest experience is supposed to be, and did he make the money that he anticipated? You know, and that's what we ask you come out of that Tuesday is all the seminars, all the interactions with the vendors, you're finding those type of ideas to take back to your restaurant, and you're focused on your 3 things. And again, one of the things that I said on Monday night that I again will emphasize here, if you haven't ever sat down and said, what do I want my guest experience to be? Yeah, there's the food, there's the environment, there's the tabletop design, there's the floor plan, you know, there's the back of the house and the visibility to the back of the house, all those things. When that all, even the parking lot and how well it's striped, or do you have valet parking? What is it when you leave your experience, not your restaurant, your experience? Here was what you designed, which is the expectation. Was the perception here, or was it here? Because at the end of the day, that's going to define who you are. Because if you defined it here and you're executing it to here, what happens? Bad stuff, right?
You're stuck in the middle.
You're stuck in the middle. And you know what? Anyone's going to tell you, if you're not, you know, in our business, we're growing or we're dying. There's no room for being stagnant. It doesn't work. Restaurant business, you're constantly reinventing yourself. You know, we had an exercise on Monday night where we asked everybody who was born in 1965 or later to stand up. And we also had a couple of Cornell students here and said, folks, this is who you're trying to please. Do you understand who they are? Do you understand what they want? Do you understand the technology they're looking at? We asked them what their Yelp ratings were, you know, and I know people tend to be shy, but in most instances I find people don't even know what Yelp is or if they've not been on and don't comprehend what people are writing about them. You know what? And then finally we come into Wednesday, and it's a culinary experience. And I got to be candid with you. I've been doing this for many, many years, and no knock on anybody who's preceded. Was this not one of the most outstanding experiences ever?
Thank you. Thank you.
And the beauty of that is like Mark said, he brought it to the Turning Stone staff and again to the culinary team. I mean, think about what they've done over these several days. Monday, we were wowed. Tuesday, we were wowed in the execution both here and over at Exit 33. And tonight, to take some of Mark's signature dishes and to execute them to the level that is his standard, again, his expectation, they got to bring the perception here, and they did it. Has anybody here ever tasted steak that good in a while? Thank you. I mean, that was outstanding. So I want to thank Mark. I want to thank, you know, I tried to get around to most of the tables and thank all of you individually. I can't even begin to tell you how important these 3 days are for us. It helps us reconnect. It helps us re-energize. It helps us to get back in touch with everyone because in most instances, to almost everyone in this room, Maine's Paper and Food Service is your sales rep or your driver. It's not me. It's not John Scully. It's not Guy Zahner. It's not Chef Amon. It's those people that touch you every day. And we do everything we can because, you know, one of the things I tell all my staff is I'm nothing but overhead. Hey, it's nice I get to get up here and speak, and it's nice I get a nice room at the hotel, but at the end of the day, if I'm not bringing value to what they bring to you, I'm useless. And so every day I've got to remind all of my staff, and Pat Doyle's sitting there going, oh my God, he's going to go into the we're nothing but overhead speech. But we are nothing but overhead. And it's the same in your restaurant. The people that sell tableside are the face of your restaurant. They better be prepared. They better know what you're trying to accomplish. They better know your value proposition. They better know how to deliver. You know, my favorite is when I have a culinary experience, when someone comes to the table and talks about the specials with such a passion, it's almost like they created it. Versus, hold on, let me tell you what they are. Oh yeah, it's, you know, to me, it's like you may as well just put it on a piece of paper and handed it to me, right? What's your guest experience? Some case, handing the specials out on paper is great. I don't know what Mark does, but I'm going to tell you, I would imagine you'd want people's tableside being as passionate as he is, right? And so that's what you need to walk away from this from. You had a phenomenal culinary experience tonight that just delighted your palate. What is it you're going to go away from this with? Yeah, you got a good meal. Yeah, you know, we're going to have a phenomenal event next door shortly, and we're all going to get up and go over there and have a couple of drinks and some desserts. It's going to be great. What did you get? And I ask that you all sit and think about that. What did you get out of Monday if you were here? What did you get out of Tuesday on the floor and at the event? What did you get today on the floor? And then finally, what did you get from Mark? What did you hear? Because one of the things Mark didn't tell you, and if I misquote this, please correct me. When I go to church, and I'm a Roman Catholic, at least this week until they finally kick me out, but when I put my fingers in the holy water, it bubbles. So obviously, they'll have a little struggle with the Catholic Church.
I didn't say that. That's him talking.
I believe your great-great-uncle?
Yes. Well, great-great-great-great.
Great-great-uncle. Francesco Forgione?
Yeah.
Also known as Padre Pio. Anybody hear Padre Pio with the stigmata? This gentleman is, I'm not even sure I'm supposed to touch him. My hand's going to burn. He's a direct descendant of, he's a direct descendant of Padre Pio. So I give him a hand because you want to go to bed tonight with him on your side. Just a couple people that I want to recognize and then we'll get out of here. Obviously, Chef Heyman, and where's Guy Zahner? Please stand up.
Over here.
The creative ability of both of these guys is beyond comprehension. And they are here to take you to another level. Use them. Because you know what? They're nothing but overhead.
A lot.
And that overhead's meant to make you better. Pat Doyle, who is my partner in crime, is here. Pat leads all of Corporate Park, which supports this event. Again, he's a lot of overhead because he's in a very big position. But again, you want to tap into what his knowledge is and what he does. To Tom Brown, John Scully, Tony Pitkin, all of the people that make this happen, I can't even begin to tell you. We will literally start tomorrow, and maybe even started a couple weeks prior to this, next year's show. Because they put it upon themselves to take it to a whole new level. And again, I will tell you, this has been the most outstanding show I've ever attended. Ever, bar none, culminated by one of the most intriguing people that's spoken for us yet. So as the guy who's the biggest overhead factor in all these people's lives, I want to thank you again. It's all about you. You're why we do this. You're why we engineer our company the way we do. You're why we pick the products in our portfolio to sell. You're why we train our salespeople to the degree that we do. To our salespeople, please never mistake what an invaluable asset you are to both me and all the rest of my overhead fellow alumni. All right? We know our role, we know our place, and without you, none of this happens. Same with our drivers, same with our warehouse folks. It's an honor. But thank you from the bottom of my heart. On behalf of Bill and David Maines and the Maines family, thank you from the bottom of their heart. I'm only the guy that gets to stand out in front of that family. And fortunately, they blessed me with the ability to run this company. Hopefully, I do it well enough to be up here next year standing in front of you, but I'll let you know how it goes.
Well, you just got touched by a saint, so you're good.
No, I burned. I burned, man. Again, if you would do me a favor, for all of our Maines, particularly our salespeople who guided you through this experience, for Guy and Chef Eamon and John and Tony and our leadership with Richie Smith and Charlie Feldman. Where's Charlie? Charlie's a key guy in this. For the Turning Stone staff, for what is one of the nicest and most humble guys I've ever met as a culinarian, because there's not a lot of my like, but he's on my short list, especially because he's blessed. I'm going to start hanging around him more. If you guys would stand up and give an outrageous, outrageous round of applause, I would greatly appreciate it.
All right.
While we're giving a round of applause, how about a round of applause for Chris Mellon, our leader?
You need to do that, thank you. All right, I'm the only thing standing between you and the bar, so it's over. And thank you. Please, please, I hope you really take to heart my words of make your lives better, make it the career and dream that you wanted to, stop making it a job, and we'll do everything we can to take you on that journey. Thank you.
And just to remind everybody, there's a meet and greet with Chef over at the showroom following this event. So come over and see Chef. If you have your cookbook, he'll sign it. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.